The void stares back. The credits are rolling, the mics are recording. Gaze into the void with your hosts, Josh and Joey, as they discuss thoughts and questions surrounding visual, written, and interactive media steeped in cosmic horror.
Hey,
Hello.
welcome to The Void Stares Back, episode X, insert number here. We just finished watching
Episode 5
yes,
of True Detective Season 1.
and
The Secret Fate of All Life.
right. I'm Joey,
I'm Josh.
and this is really exciting.
I told you. This one's got a lot to digest, so...
Yeah, so strap in. It's going to be a long one, I'm sure. How did this one start? I've already forgotten.
The infiltration of Ledoux's encampment, basically. Like his place.
Right.
They, you know...
That did all happen in the same episode. Okay.
Yeah, this one had a lot packed into it. So.
Oh, by the way, go watch the episode if you haven't.
Yeah. Yep. Take a moment.
Because it's going to be nothing
Yeah.
but spoilers.
Yeah.
So, there you go. You've been vaguely warned right after
Yeah.
something you should have already known. To some extent. Okay.
Yep. All right.
Right. So, yeah,
They find Ledoux and his dude. They follow him out there,
Right.
and Ledoux starts talking nonsense.
A little bit. A little bit Black Stars.
Back stars rise.
You said there were... because I didn't notice this detail at the time, and you just brought it up at, ex post facto, after the fact. And in her journal, there were 3 stars and a moon, or 3 moons and a star, or something like that. There's some configuration of black stars and a crescent moon, I think you said.
Correct. Yeah.
So it isn't new, the black star. It's also not a new theme
Right.
found within
Yeah.
this type of story.
Right.
They like black stars for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take a small tangent real quick. Black stars are real.
Right. Yes, they are.
And they just happen to be called... Okay, it's a theory. But for the most part, I accept it as a vague fact. Black holes are theoretically stars with so much gravity their own light can't escape.
Right. Yeah, I've heard that.
Blow your mind.
I've heard that before.
Yeah,
Yes.
fun stuff.
Yeah.
So you talk about black stars, you talk about wormholes, you talk about singularities. This whole episode's full of talk about singularities, and
Yes.
we got some Flatland talk in there for you.
Yeah.
It's funny that you experienced this before we had our talk about Flatland
Yes.
too.
Yeah.
This guy, he's full of it. We'll come back to that. But yeah, so that it's a nice little tee to hit the
Yeah.
to start us off there.
Yeah, but so Ledoux's talking about the Black Stars rise, and
That's all he says, right?
Well, he tells him, he goes,
he says,
I saw, or I saw you in
dream.
my dream.
Right.
We've been here before. You're in Carcosa now.
Right. Which
And-
is a cool implication, right? Like,
Yeah.
not just in the dream worldy thing of, like, where are you, but like the idea that it's not a gate, it's not something that has been stepped through and you've entered, it's something that it is.
Yeah.
Right? It's just, you may not have been in it before, maybe you had, but now it is everything.
Yeah.
It is the reality as you see it.
Ledoux also is the one who tells him time is a flat circle.
Oh, he does?
Yes.
During
he
that
whispers it in that, like...
manic scene.
Yeah,
of him.
that jargon before he gets shot. And, and that's what precedes him telling him, we've been here before, you're in Carcosa. Right before that, he says, the Black Stars rise, time is a flat circle.
So that timeline-wise, right?
Yeah.
Leads me to believe it was that dialogue that he had with him
Yeah.
that caused him to discover that theory. Right, to
Yes.
seek it out
Yeah.
and then to learn about it and then to be like, shit, make sense, right? It's not.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and it's funny because he mentions then in the interview with the guy is like, someone once told me, like it's been so long and like all the drink and stuff, he probably doesn't even. You're like led to believe that maybe he doesn't remember, or he's just covering that up. That Ledoux's the one who told him that. And
yeah, maybe.
You know, so that it's. I subscribe to this theory that this guy that we killed told me. You know,
yeah, because he can't disclose the actual event since he had to lie about that whole situation.
Right.
So.
Yeah, but it could be one way or the other, and you don't really.
Well, it leads me to believe that it isn't drunken forgetfulness, and that it is instead him covering his tracks so thoroughly.
Yeah,
right? Like
and I like that theory better too, but. The question is there if you want it to be. So.
Comes from an unlikely place, but there's a quote I subscribe to, and most explanations of the universe, when it's questioned to me, like, do you believe in this weird phenomenon being evidence of X, Y, Z, whatever?
Yeah.
The quote comes from a weird place, but I apply it to these sorts of things. But a wrestler, I believe a Russian or Prussian wrestler or some, he was like an MMA guy or something. Yeah. Maybe not. I don't know exactly what. But he was very, like, I don't know if he's the most undefeated fighter ever, but at the time that I was, like, learning of him, he was insane.
Yeah.
He, like, trained in the winters of Russia, like an actual Rocky movie, like, in the forests, and, like, he's like a crazy dude in terms of that. But he, in an interview, someone, like, would, you know, they'd ask him stuff, and his response was, the truth is much simpler. And it was about rumors, about fighting somebody or something like that. But he says the truth is much simpler. And English isn't his first language, so that sentence by itself doesn't really hold a lot of water. But the context was like, are these rumors true? And he's like, well, let's start off by saying that most times the truth is much simpler, right? And, and I sort of apply that. I wish I knew the guy's name. I could figure it out. But that applies to so much. Because, like, you get those conspiracy theory people, and they're like, the government, you know, boiled eggs in our water, and now we're all going to, you know, have to wear tinfoil hats and stuff. I'm just like, all right, I don't know if you've met the government lately. They're not the most organized people.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, so it's often just a lot simpler than you think it is. And when you add layers of complication, that's when you get to the ludicrous. And well, why was I bringing that up? I know I'm asking you.
Time is a flat circle. Joey.
I feel like I've been here before.
Yeah.
No, I was relating that to what we were just talking about.
Concept of the universe.
It's lost on me, but we'll pick back up where we were, and then maybe it'll make sense.
You'll remember it in the next life.
The point is that's I carry that sort of like lens with me in life, and like that's basically what makes these stories interesting, right? Like when you introduce otherworldly, not meant to be understood situations, in some supernatural context, and then you supplant that into the real world that we understand, and then you make people stare into the void and just have no tools to even begin to understand it, and aren't meant to generally, right? And then, coming back to McConaughey's character in the interview when he spaces out and rambles, because he's done that many times in the series so far. In this one, he gets a little bit crazier, right? Like it's to us it begins to be clear that he's interviewing with them not just because they need him, but because he's clearly a little bit off his rocker,
right?
Building weird people out of cans and monuments just casually while they making no real reference to it, fixing it when it falls over, and being very fiddly and kind of insane. He God, I keep losing my train of thought. There's so much to say. God dang it. There's just like, I keep finding these details as I start to explain one thought, and then I'm on thought 3, and I have no clue what I'm talking about anymore.
Maybe you need some cans to work on.
Yeah, give me something to fiddle with. It'll help my brain focus. I don't know. But the point I was making was that the interview has, from the beginning, been clear that, like, the interviewers don't trust either of them.
Right.
You know, and that it's not, like, it's clearly not just, we're here for information because we melted the old files, in water.
Yeah, right.
Like, maybe that's, and I think I said this exactly to some extent in a previous episode, but it's a nice payoff to see, like, how the interviewers have sort of, become truly framed as to what, their intentions are. Mm-hmm. Like, their interview with McConaughey is specifically, with the intent to, drag something out of him that should otherwise, he should have not, otherwise not have known. And then the other interview with Marty is about, it also showcases how easy he is to be swayed. Like, during the events, the interviewers are convincing them that he's leading Marty to the narrative he wants to play, which is how Marty started.
Yeah.
He's like, don't do that, it's dangerous. And then he just slowly creates convincing argument after show of evidence, proof of concept, and totes him along. He starts to act a little bit like Rusty.
Yeah.
Say some weird things to some mistress, that, links in some weird way to the sort of thing that, Rusty would say. And then, but now the interviewers have got him on their hook, right? He's like, maybe. Well, like, he's pausing, right? He's entertaining the idea. He's not confident. He's not cocky anymore. He's not like, I'm gonna leave, I'll close my little manila folder. I'll leave if you don't tell me what the fuck's going on. And then they're just like, basically, here's a lot of pretty solid evidence to seed doubt in your whole relationship with him. And he's like, fuck, because he had that at the start. Yeah. He had a little seed, and it just stayed a seed. Yep. And the other thing grew where he followed. Yeah. He's just a tool. Yeah. In almost every aspect of his life, and it's interesting to see the leash change hands a little bit, at least, maybe. Who knows exactly how that'll pan out, but, like, if he's entertaining the idea, it's not a new thought. Yeah. This isn't like, I have so much to process. It's like, oh, you're framing all of this as evidence, and I hadn't, given that the time of day. Because he spends his whole interview repeatedly over a couple episodes, I think. Marty, he continues to say that phrase that, I don't remember which episode it was. It was either 4 or 3. Maybe it was this episode. I don't know. So much is happening. But he says the detective's curse. Yes. Yeah. But he keeps talking about his kids and his wife when referencing that. Yeah. And the detectives in the interview are basically like, guess what, buddy? It's Russ. He's the thing under your nose that you're missing. Yeah. And that's their argument. And he's going, oh, yeah, kind of, maybe, like, what you're saying is not ludicrous. Right, yeah. Yeah, and so that's pretty fascinating for that relationship. I also like the idea that right at the end, one of them's still in an interview and one of them isn't. Yeah. I'm excited to see how that pans out as far as, like, how they intercut back to the present. Yeah. Whether it's... Because the only things that happen in the present now have been in that room. Yep. Presumably the same room. Yeah.
Well, it's a different room. I think you can tell.
Really?
Maybe.
I think it might be a different angle, maybe. You know
well,
what I mean?
The guys are sitting in a different spot.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure
I
either.
know. Well,
I haven't really been.
know things, but I'm not.
I know actually. So,
Yeah.
you're wrong. That's fine. You know, whether they visited or had him come out doesn't really matter.
You say that.
Sure, it probably doesn't matter.
I'm just kidding.
It's just interesting that there's some sort of a path that, you know, the present day storytelling
Yeah.
can diverge, perhaps, if they choose. I mean, they can keep digging back before the events of him walking out. That's just less interesting, so we'll see what they do with it. But they've been telling us the story chronologically, right?
Yeah.
You know, like, so I don't know that they're going to be like, back before he stormed out with a cigarette in his mouth, here's some more stuff he said. You know, I don't know if that will happen that way. But yeah, it'll be interesting. Because now we're losing one side of the story. Because his side, the guy who walked outside of the story just opened the fuck up.
Yeah.
He goes back to these places that they didn't have time to press. They got to the school, honk honk, we gotta leave.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, complains that he's walking instead of run.
Yep.
Never got inside.
Right.
Finally gets inside at the end and there's a bunch of cool shit.
Yeah.
Go figure, you know.
Right.
Well, not really. There's just more. There's 3 cool things. Everything else was like just more little twig constructions or whatever. But yeah, I'm really excited about that potential element that they can play with.
Speaking of the school.
Okay.
Right. So I don't know what three cool things you're thinking of.
No, I'm excited to know that there were more. I was thinking of the angels.
Okay.
With the red eyes and the little gingerbread man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay.
Yeah, so those were the 3 things I was talking. I don't know if there are more that I missed.
Oh, just those 3 individual drawings.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
That's what I meant when I said 3.
3. Oh, okay.
Because there were 3, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's 2 angels and the guy. Yeah. Okay. That's one thing to me.
Sure. No. Yeah, it's like the same wall, right? It's the same artist, you know.
The desk and chair arrangement.
As he went in?
Yes.
Sure.
Is a spiral.
Yeah, he had to walk around the room, which I found weird.
Through it.
Yeah.
To get to the middle.
Where he didn't give a good shot of why he was doing that.
Yeah.
That I picked up on.
Yeah.
Because the room I assumed was empty, right? The whole place has been just fucking trashed and relatively empty. And then he's just circling the wall instinctually is what I assumed, but
yeah. Well, it's the
sense.
room he gets into after seeing the wall with the drawings on it.
Right, the final room he's in the final shot.
He literally has to take corners to get to the central area of the room.
Right.
Walking around these desks,
I didn't know that there was a central part of the room. It seemed like he was still in a corner.
It's closer to the corner, but he
still did that
the center
shape.
of the spiral, basically. So the spiral's off to one side of the room.
Yeah.
He's led by the little sculptures or whatever to then what looks like, which has been repeated throughout the show so far,
a congregation
around
figures.
One central figure.
Yeah.
And so then he picks up the biggest one and starts to examine
Was it the central figure?
It is.
Okay, yeah. Sure.
And it's sitting actually on top of a couple books, and the other ones
a few
on the floor.
A few of the other
around
ones were as well on his way there.
Yeah.
Little stacks.
Mm-hmm. But
was that it? Is that all you meant?
Yes. Oh no. So that's the second thing.
Other things in there.
The room.
Yeah.
And everything in it. And so that last shot
of him
panning out, and he's holding it.
Yeah.
And then he's encompassed by black stars.
Yeah,
on the wall and stuff.
On the glass.
And around that is woods. So
it's like a transportation sort of situation where he's just because the place wasn't in the woods.
Correct. Correct. But the drawing around the window that you're looking through is all trees.
Right.
So
wait, what did you say? The drawing?
So The last shot is him holding up the thing in the light.
That was a drawing, is what you're saying? Of the forest?
Yeah. All right. So
on the wall?
It's panning out and out. So you're looking through the window at him.
Yeah.
Around the window on the wall is just trees and stuff, all drawn.
Drawn. Okay.
Yeah, and the
I didn't
stars
interpret it as drawn. I saw the graffiti of the star, like the asterisks, right? Like the stars and stuff
on the window itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that. I just, for some reason, didn't notice that it wasn't like actual foliage.
No, this is still inside the building. That's a window into the classroom from the hallway.
Sure.
And the wall of the hallway has just black scratched forest all around it. So
I don't know why that was lost on me. I thought it was like similar to like where they discovered the chalk. You know, where it was overgrowth on
it's like chalk or burnt ash drawings of the forest.
Yeah, I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. So that's
just like referential metaphor. Mm-hmm. Like, we're going to be in the woods later. We already talked about it. You know?
Sure.
The woods, the black stars, these things, they're important. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, we know. Yeah. I didn't notice.
Yeah, it's just all building more and more. So.
Yeah. The angels, though, are strange in that nothing has related to them in shape.
No, yeah.
Up until then, like they talk about angels, right? But those weren't angels as much as they were like cherubs,
right?
Which are babies.
Yeah. Yep.
And then there's just this weird meeple man.
Yeah.
You know, with pointy appendages and red eyes. They all had red eyes.
Yeah. Well, and the angels also had blood dripping from their mouths, or where their mouths would be. So. And
then little halos. Mm-hmm. And wings. Yeah, I don't know. It's It didn't speak to me as particularly important imagery, other than it being creepy, and probably set up as more not payoff, but set up for maybe future things. It was still cool. It's always cool.
Give you a little more what you want.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, like I'm interested.
Yeah,
I'm invested in knowing more about those little angels and that weird. Still interested about the stacks, right? Like, they briefly mention practical uses, of them in the past, in like episode 1. Well, when they talk to the preacher, and he brings up like the dream catcher thing, except for demons, right?
Yep. Devil's nests.
Right, and
or nets, devil's nets.
Nets. Yeah. Okay, yeah, and so the relevance there is still. I don't know. I don't want that to be the payoff.
Yeah.
Like I'm interested to know the symbolic meaning behind it, outside of, them representing people or something like that.
Sure. Yeah.
Which they seem to. They're they're like calling cards, right? Like and he keeps finding them in weird places and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. You know what they tie to? Not inside the show, but inside our show. They're pyramids.
Sure.
Which was a heavy use of imagery in the void.
Sure.
It's all one thing, Joey.
Is this going to end with a scene of him overlooking a giant floating pyramid in a desolate landscape?
Maybe.
Yeah, hopefully not. Maybe.
What would you even do?
What?
Well, like I want to have that conversation.
Oh, if it happened and we turned the mics on, I'd be upset.
Would you really?
Yeah, that's lazy. Don't let me judge too much off your face. I didn't like it then, and that's not going to change.
No, I was thinking more in terms of like this ties to that movie in particular. And
even worse. Even worse.
Oh no.
No, I mean, I would just be a little upset over that. Like, the pyramid thing or something, but like, I don't know. It's less interesting.
Sure.
Than literally making something up. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like you got to find some way to create mystery by drawing from the ancient civilizations of our, you know. They're not mysterious. People just don't know anything about them.
Right.
There's things to know about them. We have stuff that we know about. You know, it's not. They're not mysterious. The minutia of how they live their daily lives might be mysterious. That's not important.
Right.
You know, and it's also not that different from how you might expect they live their lives. You know, like it's not something that's like, you don't know that they didn't sacrifice people and eat their hearts and stuff. It's like, yeah, sure. Goodness. You can make that leap in a movie, great. I'm just not there for it.
Sure.
There's a lot of payoff stuff in this one.
Yeah.
That was just the end moment, the big end.
Yeah. Let's back up. I'm trying to think of the other.
Well, we had the jail cell suicide and the phone call.
Yeah, and even just a little bit before that, obviously, the guy's like, I can tell you, I can tell you about the Yellow King.
The Yellow King, and
you know, and then
he's the only one who would have known about that, right? Like,
yeah.
So
that was a case detail that was not released to the public, and
that's also something that's like interesting in that it plants the seed in Russ that it's not over, you know, like.
Yeah.
He just finds himself politically in a place where if he opens the book back up, you know, his crime, you know, his unprofessional resolution of who they really caught for it is, you know, put into question.
Yeah.
And further investigation. And
right.
That sort of a thing. So he's like, also, it's a lot to throw on a guy, right? You know, you think you're just there as a consulting
guy. You're just getting this average Joe who busted up a pharmacy, and all of a sudden it's like, nope. Here's another. What did he say? Mainlining the secrets of the universe. Just all of a sudden,
it just gets handed to him.
Yeah. Here's a blast from your past.
Yeah, and
all that goes along with it.
Well, yeah, and like with the gravitas of what shouldn't be known.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, because like that guy to make those leaps of detail, right? Like, I said a thing because the story from the perspective of Marty is incomplete, right? Like, he just knows that Russ needs to go to this guy. Tell him on the way.
Yeah.
He said some weird stuff relating back to the old case.
Yeah.
That's all he really knows, I imagine.
Yeah, because he even asked me, he's like, even if he really has something, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
and
like totally disbelieving that this guy could possibly be credible.
That it's a dead lead and he's a druggie. And,
yeah.
And then they get there to a dead end, so there's no reason that Russ needs to, like, divulge.
Yeah.
The interaction word for word and that sort of a thing. So there's just a seed that it's not over, which gives precedence to why you see him at crime scenes in photos.
Yeah.
He's still following the case.
Yeah.
Off the books.
Yep.
Trying to solve the murder.
Off the books was the term you were trying to think of.
I said above the books.
In the last episode.
In the last episode, this is a retcon of the previous episode of off the books. So it gives him that in, right, of being the suspicious guy who's hanging around crime scenes, because most criminals who commit them are also there.
Yeah, they always revisit. Yep.
More doubt for the viewer.
Yep.
Like whether which of those two narratives is true.
Right.
We're being fed one of them exclusively, and we're being told the other one is possible.
Yeah.
But not being shown it.
Yeah.
So the viewer's more inclined to believe Russ is innocent.
Yeah.
You know. Who knows? But yeah, the phone call is an interesting thing. Like, he sort of like very briefly sort of like casts away the notion that it's not unreasonable that someone could say have a 15-minute phone call.
Yeah.
Well, less, because you got to get to the phone and back. Right. The jump in time on the camera feed between him leaving to receive the call and then committing suicide or whatever was a 15-minute jump.
Yeah.
So like a 12-minute phone call and then comes back and ends it.
Yeah.
You know, and like there's supposed to be like mystical powers, kind of like I'm interested to know more about that guy now that all of that happened, because I'm forgetting if I knew any details that were delivered in the interrogation scene about whether he has like next of kin and that sort of a thing. I think they mentioned it. He describes the guy, the drug addict, McConaughey describes him.
Yeah.
He says, "You're this guy, and here's your only option," and he goes through the whole thing. I don't remember what he said about his.
I don't think he has any
prospects and connections, because that's the implication that McConaughey makes later at the payphone about like what could be said that suicide was the better option.
Right.
And generally that's like, we've got your family, it'd be a shame if something happened to them.
Sure, yeah.
There's not a lot you can hold over a drug addict.
Yeah.
Just a guy looking for a fix, hopped up on PCP.
Yeah.
Or whatever,
Well, I mean, if he's connected in any way, then obviously, at least on some level he is, because he mentions the Yellowcake, so like we know that he is, and
that's like a fear of power, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, if he's connected in any way to these other people, I mean, given what little we know so far about their belief system, like maybe they're threatening him with something far beyond an earthly threat. Right?
Maybe. I was actually going to take it a different route after having said that, because that's what I meant, was like he's afraid of some some otherworldly danger of
some different cosmic fate.
Yeah. But I think it's a better line to assume he doesn't. It's more important. The type of threat isn't as important as where he is.
Yeah.
He doesn't, like, the threat is important that he goes to the length of suicide, right? That's where the threat value is tied. But the fact that he doesn't feel safe in his cell, I think, is telling of the powers that be.
Yeah.
That this guy feels like a conspiracy theorist. Where he's like, they could get to me
even here.
Yeah. If I go to, when I go to prison, I'm not safe from them there. Like that, the idea of the value of the power that they hold, and the reach that they could obtain, I think, is a little bit more telling about.
Well, and
the
even
choice, right?
I mean, and if you think about it, like, so Rust goes to consult years after their case is solved, and
you're talking about the interviewers, the present day guys?
No, because him consulting as an interrogator for this dude is years after their case was solved. Okay,
it's like so they said it was like 10 years or something, right? Or like 7?
This is about. It's one of many things over a span of 7 years.
7, okay. From that point.
Yeah, and then after the 7-year mark, there's a 10-year gap between the two of them talking to each other. 17 total from the case.
From the present to what?
Yes.
Whether,
Correct.
Okay.
So, but years after their case is solved, he goes to talk to this guy. Guy mentions Yellowcake, and and we don't have any way to connect him to anybody else. So Rust doesn't have any way that we know of to connect him to anybody else, other than he makes this statement. Guy goes back to his cell. Someone calls him, knowing that he said it,
right,
and then gives him whatever ultimatum that it ultimately causes him to kill himself.
Right,
and it's
a series of coincidences, sort of situation.
Yeah, well, and it's just like that shows that what kind of power that they may hold.
Possibly,
that they know that he even mentioned it in a closed interrogation room.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing,
miles from where the other cases have been.
I think that's I don't think that that's implied as much as it's the way that you could interpret that, like as it's like someone had, there are ears, and because the fact that he talked, right, like the idea, it's like we got to silence this, this loose end of this druggie. It only really exists outside of that realm for the most part is him just saying the Yellow King.
Yeah.
He doesn't go into any detail.
Right.
He wants a deal. And he's just repeating that and screaming it. And so everybody in that, outside the door that were there, anybody who was just sort of de-escalating the situation could have been privy to that. But I think it might, going back to that quote where real life is more simple, it could just be that, he's just a liability either way, just being out there.
It's weird that that years later they would come to that conclusion, whoever they are, right?
I think the conclusion is that he did a high-profile crime. And is a drug addict that's in the PCP drugged loop of the cult.
Yeah.
Because that's already been a thing from all the victims.
Yeah.
Where they're just like being kept catatonic in a drugged state.
Yeah.
And he's the one that got off the rails, killed 2 people.
Yeah.
And was like a spotlight, right?
Yeah.
He's like, everybody look, there's this thing got out of hand that they are trying to maybe control for their cultic purposes or whatever.
Okay. Yeah, I see where you're drawing the
line. So that could easily be interpreted as like a loose end that's worth dealing with. As far as convincing someone to like bleed out is like, and obviously the guy maybe just doesn't know the implications of the way that goes, the way it feels to go that, because the guy had, like, I don't know if you noticed.
Yeah.
He was like, and then went back for more.
Yeah.
He had multiple.
Yeah, he had multiple slashes.
Multiple gashes from the corner or whatever.
Yeah.
He wasn't cuffed in the cell, was he?
No. His arms were open. So
I didn't know if they were like this.
No, they're to the sides. Yeah.
I just remember looking at one of the farthest arm when I was.
The one you get a better look at where you can see both big cuts.
Yeah, so it was like a mad thing that he went through to just do it the one time as it wasn't enough.
Yeah.
For this guy, it wasn't fast enough, or painful enough, or I don't know. So that element of it is where the supernatural feels better, but
right.
I don't know. It's interesting. There's a couple of angles that it sort of could maybe take form. Those like moments, I think, started to feel rushed. Like we didn't spend a whole lot of time on that whole sequence before moving on.
Yeah.
And obviously, I think it's due to the escalation of the present day interrogation stuff, where like that was starting to devolve into him ending up leaving and and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's interesting, but it's hard to say what it all means for the bigger picture. There's another big moment, unless you have more to mention about that.
No, we can move on.
Okay. We got some nice repeated imagery, and by repeated I mean you find it in most stories like this, of the gaping hole in the tree. And him staring into it. Once again, like staring into holes. Usually it's a tiny mirror. We skipped on that detail last episode, but that was a funny prod at kind of what we were trying to understand in previous episodes, where Marty's like, am I supposed to be able to see both my eyes in this little tiny thing? I'm like trying to use it because he sees Russ use it all the time. I don't know. It was a weird sequence, but
it's funny.
Yeah. I don't remember that.
The spiral of... That's because it wasn't there.
Yeah.
So it's there now.
Yeah. I was thinking he went back there and was going to find a shrine to the events.
Sure.
That, something...
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's as good a shrine as any. As a giant little, wreath of blackness at the center that stares into,
Yep, a black hole.
quote unquote
Or
nothing.
black star, if you will.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm
we'll
just
see.
saying.
I know.
And it's a spiral.
Yeah, I think the circular imagery and people just like staring into voids in these sorts of things. There's no camera, but I would be looking straight at it if there were. But yeah, that was. I let out a number of sighs in this episode.
Hopefully in a good way.
And gasps, more. I guess is a better word for it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh. That was one of them, and there were many others at some of these other key points that we've been talking about. But that was a big one. I like that he was revisiting.
The only one I heard audibly from you was when the druggie said, "I can tell you about the Yellow King," and like even McConaughey's character's eyes get wide. Like that moment, like the realization when it hits him.
Yeah.
I could hear you go.
That's why I was sad that quote unquote dead ended. With them not really learning anything.
Yeah.
Because I was like really excited, and I'm sure it didn't dead end at all. It will come to light in some way, but it's I was excited about that. Yeah, for sure. It was the same gasp I had when it was written in the diary.
Yeah.
It's just nice that they just didn't linger on it and make it a point, and then they can bring it up again and give you the same reaction. Like, they're not. Oh, it's bigger. You get pay attention, you idiots.
Yeah, more people know about it.
The detective's curse has you all. Yeah, no, that was cool. I didn't trust my memory about the wreath though. To stick to that for a sec, as I was watching it, so I assumed it was a detail that was hidden by the murder, right?
Yeah.
Like I was more paying attention to the corpse and stuff, and that was maybe what she was praying to, and I just didn't notice.
Yeah.
So I needed to confirm that.
Yeah, to my knowledge, after multiple viewings, I don't remember it in the beginning.
I didn't remember it either, and I usually trust my gut on that sort of thing. But yeah, it was pretty cool. I'm interested to see what this crazy person drew in his little Taxman book.
Yeah.
I want to see those drawings of all these things he's finding.
Yeah.
I feel like there's another big moment that I've forgotten right now. Because there were just so many. What else happened?
Oh, man.
Where did we start here?
Well, the episode starts with Ledoux killing him and their story about that. And
so the Black Star was the first thing that was like the big talking point. Okay, then
and him saying you're in Carcosa now.
Yeah, and then that's done.
Yep.
After they talk about, after they show the cover up and talk about the fake story.
Right. Then they kind of move on to just life after, right? And,
right. They
like Rust is starting to do more consulting work as an interrogator guy.
He's also with his second lady.
Yeah.
That he mentioned before.
Yep. They set him up. Marty's finally back with his wife, trying to mend things and okay.
That's what it is. The scenes with his daughters.
Yeah.
And the really eerie music.
Yeah.
And I think it was only meant to show a shift in power for when it transitions to that gap in time.
Yeah.
And she's like, like a punk rock rebellious child, and and her younger sister is an upstanding cheerleader or whatever.
Yeah.
But the whole sequence was, I was waiting for like a pinwheel or something to show up and like be the spiral imagery, and like it was really windy and like I was like, this is shot creepily, and it's meant to be uneasy, but I don't know why. Because I was in detail mode. I was like, I'm looking for the spiral carved into the tree. I'm looking for something, and that was like the one time where they focus on these kids so creepily.
Yeah.
Which they've done a few times. Mm-hmm. Where there didn't feel like there was any direct, and maybe I missed it. Maybe the crown is supposed to be, like the tiara / crown / royal kings, royalty, referential stuff. It had feathers as opposed to tassels. It looked like as they got tore up through age, they started to look like but like as they did the transition,
they're frayed and
they look like feathers for a bit, and then there's just one remaining when it's
years later.
When it's caught up. I don't know. It could just be like a reference to further encourage us to think that the older daughter, I assume, has the propensity for some evil energy. Because they keep coming back to them. Right. It's always weird. She's drawing sex imagery when she's young. And she becomes the rebellious
setting
goth
up her Barbies
punk.
when she's even younger.
And so there's all these like insidious moments or whatever. It'll be interesting to see. If prediction alert.
Ooh, I like these.
I don't know that I should do this sort of a thing because I'm good at reading people, so I'm not going to look at Josh while I say this. It sort of feels like there's all these moments in the show, and I'll name a couple. We're talking all the shots of the children, all the eerie shots. We're talking Stonehenge of Barbies. We're talking creepy wind, tiara scene. We're talking the, after school, or not, well, I guess during school, but the talking to for the drawings made it during school. Like the sex scene talk where Marty McDoucheface hits his daughter. But even more so, we're talking the scene where Marty runs out after finding the little girls, or the kids. I think one was a boy, and blows off the would-be bad guy's face. Feels like it's all leading up to point towards your daughter is going to be faced with cult activity. Or like leading up to the older daughter being like pulled into the situation by no means of her father in some way, maybe. And I'm not sure if there's any credence to that, but I feel like the whole time I've been watching the show, I don't feel a good reason why they're being like, the kids are creepy and mysterious and they're the elder beings. They keep showing these creepy moments, but only to them. And it's important for Marty's character progression and the events he's experiencing that he has only daughters. End of prediction. I'm looking at you now. But yeah, that's whether it's like more deeply important, I don't know. I feel like it's important for some reason. I'd rather it wasn't only important for Marty's like character development and how he reacts to seeing women in these situations and that sort of thing. Like that's certainly relevant to some extent. But it definitely feels like the seeds have been scattered for something going on there.
Sure.
But yeah, that's the end of the prediction hour with Joey. Tune in next week when I'm sure I'll have a retcon for it.
Yeah. I find it
But yeah, that scene was definitely weird.
I find it interesting too that, so there's obviously all this stuff about spirals and time is a flat circle, and you look at time from outside of our viewpoint, it's flat.
Flatland. That happened in this one too.
Yeah. Well, hold on. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Because that's a whole
I did
thing in
say
itself.
that we would get to that.
Yeah. Even when Marty is like, makes his like, kind of his last plea to his wife, and like, she's like, you got a long road to climb. He's like, yes, I do.
They're roller rinking in a circle.
They're just going in a circle. Yeah. Yeah, it's everywhere.
Sure.
So I thought that was really cool and interesting too, that that was the setting they chose for that.
I didn't make that connection as something that was relevant, but
and the setting for him, like setting up possibly his future, right? Like being circular. Like, here I am back with her.
Trying it again. And he talks about how it failed.
Yeah, and he talks about like, and I changed, but maybe not the way I needed to. And
And it keeps bringing up the detective's curse.
Yeah. So, yeah. But, so yeah, let's go back and talk about Flatland.
Yeah. To truncate that, Marty's kids are weird. Okay, so Russ has one of those space out moments.
Yeah, a big one
in the interview where he tells him about this idea, which is not too dissimilar to a book called Flatland. Pause the episode. It's like a tiny pamphlet. Go read it. It's just a perspective on what it means for us to see. So a short synopsis. We live in a 3D world. We have two eyes. So we are able to see with depth, but each of our eyes is only seeing in the dimension below. Depth is an illusion for us. Mm-hmm. People who lose an eye experience a lack of depth perception.
Yeah.
Because one ocular thing, cameras, all this stuff, it's only allowing you the ability to capture what you're seeing in two dimensions. Mm-hmm. So you're only seeing two dimensions worth of anything at any given point.
Yep.
Light, shadow, and a secondary eye obfuscates that and gives you the impression you're seeing in three dimensions. As a thought experiment, you can take that into other dimensions. Take it down. We're 3D beings with eyes. We see 2D things. To prove that, we'll go down. A 2D object with eyes, what does that look like? Well, it's a circle. Draw a circle, and then you draw two eyes on the end of that circle, on the line of the circle. What does it see? It sees the dimension below it. If you put two circles next to each other and you had their eyes face each other, each of them see a line.
Yep.
A singular bisection of what it is that we're looking at any given point. His whole spiel in the interrogation scene is about taking that step in the other direction, up, and how a fourth dimensional being would see.
Yeah.
And he's talking more about time and it, as opposed to it just being a physical object that you would see. But a four-dimensional being would look down into our three-dimensional world and see in 3D. You can't picture it because it's pretty difficult, but imagine, you're holding a ball. Yeah. Like a football or something, or a basketball or a soccer ball. A four-dimensional being would see all of the sides of it at once.
Yeah.
By just looking at it.
Yep.
It wouldn't be weird, as you imagine it's weird now.
Yeah.
They wouldn't need mirrors. They would just look, and that's what they see. Just in the same way when you look at it, you see a singular face of it.
Yeah.
As a 2D image.
Yeah.
So he's talking about the view on, the control or the mastery over the fourth dimension of time or whatever. And however that actually relates, there's no real science backing it, but that is a similar thought experiment that he sort of brings up with his little squished, tall boy or whatever the fuck he's drinking.
Yeah, he slams that can.
Where they look down and they can see all of it happening at once.
Yep. They
can see what we perceive to be time passing as all occurring at the same moment. Mm-hmm. If you've ever watched or read The Watchmen, Dr. Manhattan experiences this.
Yeah.
He sees all of the present and the future at once.
Yeah.
And how he comes to terms with that is that he understands how time works, therefore knowing anything he'll ever do, and also knowing that he's bound by that truth.
Yeah.
So he and there's a line in it where he talks about how he just goes through the motions.
Yeah.
He looks at the Martian sand and he sees it as the castle he builds out of it.
Yeah. Yep.
And it just manifests before him. And like a lot of that's really enigmatic, but that's just a way of a singular once normal human being experiencing what it's like to now have mastery over the fourth dimension.
Right. Yeah.
And in his case, all of matter and time and space. And so, he's a superhero guy, but but that's that's the rundown on that whole scene. And like him getting a little crazy about it, I think was less about like, oh, that's kind of creepy that he's such a weird dude, but more about him actually reminiscing about, because we talked about it for a second, but him actually physically reminiscing about the fact that he heard that line said by that guy.
Yeah.
very specifically, and he can't really talk about that. And it was him, I think, being stuck in the memory as well as being kind of out of himself, thinking about this weird esoteric thing.
Yeah. Yep. What did you think about his lines following that about death created life so it could grow the things it kills?
Yeah, that's clearly like that's clearly another example of what I've continued to mention about him, where he stops believing in the things he talks about.
Yeah.
By believing in slightly contradicting things, but not enough to be like polarly opposite, right? Like he talks about death being some entity now. All of a sudden there's something that created everything. So I think it's more of a reflection on how he views the idea of God more than like it's not so much like we were created by death specifically. Also, there's God, and death is just like to hang out. He's he's not really like talking about them as a bunch of individual entities, I think.
Right.
He's just giving the onus of the creation of us that personification.
Yeah.
Saying it's like whoever created us so that we would die, and knew that there was this cyclical nature to things, and we would relive. And so he's like basically cherry picking cherry picking different religious like
doctrines. Is that the
not
word?
Exactly. I mean, that's what I was saying, but it's even finer than that. Like reincarnation isn't particularly a Christian thing.
Yeah.
Yet he has the cross, and he thinks about martyrdom, and does it every morning or something like that. He talks about
it's a form of meditation for him. Yeah.
And then he brings up death and the idea that it's an entity that sadistically created life so that it had something to do. And these ideas they're not from the same place. These ideas, they're from all sorts of different ideologies, and not all of them are religious. Like death as an entity isn't particularly a religious figure.
Right.
They talk about some gods having domain over the land of the death, but it's not often like a guy in a mask with a scythe, walking around collecting souls. Souls are brought to them, or they willingly come to the by some entity of force or something. Yeah.
Or death itself just ferries souls from one spot to another.
And like the soul, he's not going door to door, the souls go to him. Mm-hmm. They got to pay the boatman.
Yeah.
Got to bring the pence. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting that, in these moments, he sort of adopts some. Oh, you're good. He adopts some belief system for an important point, or something that he deems important, but a point that he needs to make by way of this example. And so it's either that he believes in too many dumb things to really be taken seriously, or that this is just some back burner way that he's used to communicate his lens to the normal people around him.
Yeah.
This is an easier way for him to deliver his, narcissism to the world.
Sure.
I don't know that I think it's closer to that he's just lost it, right? And like all of these, once again, the spinning plates, for him are cerebral. They're not physical interactions that he's having to keep up together. It's the idea that I am here to help people, but now I work at a bar and live upstairs and drink my life away. And but I still, through all that, have these ideologies that I vaguely stick to, and like it's interesting what he chooses to communicate, let alone believe. Like I don't really know how much he believes that whole statement. He starts off by talking about a theory, like it's clearly important to the story for us to have been there when he heard the Black Star nonsense. Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting. But I don't know that it's like supernatural or doesn't communicate a whole lot specifically, other than more Russell death definition or whatever.
Yeah.
More crazy Russellisms. Crazy cat, that guy. But yeah, I always like talking about Flatland. You know me.
Yeah. Yep. You mentioned it a few different times with me.
Yeah, I gotta get that book again. I used to own it.
It's probably not hard to find.
It's like a $3 book.
I was
It's
gonna say.
a tiny thing. Go read it. It's your recommendation. It has nothing to do with the Eldritch and the Great Beyond.
No.
But it is a cool thought experiment, and it's short. It's not very taxing. Any other big points in this episode? Or even small points that,
I think that
jumped out?
those are all the major beats.
Well, we were walking through it. We got to the kids. You said, we were going through their
Rebuild.
the golden era, their rebuild of their lives. And
after the case and stuff.
they glossed over it because Marty didn't know, but the detectives asked Marty if they knew why Ross and the girl split ways, and he gave a vague answer about people
That was the
reality.
segue into what happens between men and women, reality, and then the
court scene.
No, it's him driving into his driveway with his daughter in the car.
Oh, yeah.
It was the segue into she's now facing the reality of growing up as a woman, and
Sure.
So,
Well, the unfortunate part about the scene, the framing in that scene, because it's just making Marty a douchebag even more. Is that whole thing existed more as a scene to communicate information about Marty and less about.
right.
It's that whole scene is about
Yeah.
Marty and his wife,
Yeah.
and not about his daughter.
Right.
In so many words, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. But yeah, that's the
they didn't really go into
why they
why
split.
Russ.
Yeah. Split it off with
They give you
Lori.
the vague thing where you're meant to gather that he's just not that into her. She's there like
he looks,
drooling while she's like flipping channels, and he's just like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
He realizes he's been going through, his programming kicked in maybe,
Yep.
and like now he's like, oh, what am I doing? What a waste of time.
Yeah.
And then he's hit with the Yellow King shit.
Yeah.
And now it's like,
Okay.
fuck this chick.
Yeah.
Fuck relationships. Fuck human
Yeah.
interaction.
I'm going back to.
I'm going to the school. I'm
Yeah.
going back to the crime scene.
Yeah.
We're digging this back up.
Mhm.
And as a result, my relationship is just
gone.
secondary, and
Yeah.
it's going to crumble around me or whatever. But I don't, I'm already relatively emotionless
Yeah.
in that, so that's reading a lot from that one scene, but, I'm sure that's just, he already foreshadowed it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, then after that, then the interrogators kind of just.
Then it went from there, yeah.
They were like, "Hey, your old partner might be a bad dude," and Russ is like, "Well, thanks for wasting my time."
Yeah.
So. And that was kind of it. He finds we see him in the school,
Yeah.
discovering more of the unknown.
Yeah, we'll see.
You get frustrated?
It's just that, like, I don't like revisiting the same question as much as I like new questions.
Sure. Okay.
You could just keep something from me, That's
Yeah.
how you keep a question alive for a
Yeah.
viewer. You just never tell them the answer.
Sure.
I want to be looking for the answer in the show, and I want the show to convey that you're kind of tell me, and then you, instead of telling me, ask a new, different question. And then I'm like,
Sure.
oh my God, it's opened wide open, it's opened up. This is great,
Yeah.
That's personal preference, but this does this. The show does that in much smaller, for smaller stakes, right? Like,
Yeah.
it'll be like, oh, isn't this a new development? I'm like, yeah, sure, but like, I can see this wrapping up in like a third of an episode,
Yeah.
as opposed to it being like, what does this all mean?
Yeah,
Is it
yeah.
another crazy thing? Like, I thought there was going to be something wicked crazy in that trailer.
When Marty flips the door open.
Because you don't get to see it, and he runs out and he blows the guy's face off.
Yeah.
I was like, there's going to be some horrific scene in there, and it was just kids. It makes sense. Character, it all makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not disappointing, but like, my mind went to so many places.
Well, and it's supposed to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. They definitely built it up that way.
Oh, yeah.
So.
But yeah, that was... Also, I made a big scene out of it.
Okay.
Last episode, or whenever. Or I guess, last episode. I'm really happy with the unceremonious murder of
Ledoux?
Of Post Malone in the gas mask.
Yeah.
That was a happy sequence of events for my initial impression of the guy.
Sure.
I was because like the voiceover, like I said, was goofy at the end of the last episode where they're like, everything's got a big bad boss at the end. It's like a video game, and then the guy just like says some weird cryptic shit and gets his face blowed off. Yep. I was like, okay,
yeah,
I'm glad there wasn't a big boss fight. You know,
No, they spin the story to be the big boss fight. Yeah.
I was satisfied with that.
Yeah,
because I was afraid of that being like kind of lame or played out. I don't generally like media where the main characters are like unbeatable, perfect, killing machines, or like in this case, I borderline don't like Russ as a character because he solves the crime and he's like super detail oriented. He's the perfect detective, and like, sure, whatever. But luckily, there's enough of a deeper spin on that idea in this show where it's like maybe he did it, and it's like you never fully get the story of how and why he's so detailed, other than that he is, and that everyone is uneasy about him, and slowly forget that they're uneasy about him when they come back the heroes, and like now everybody's his friend, and like he finally has the moment where he shakes the guy's hand who's
his boss, basically, right?
No. Well, they have that scene as well, but the guy who gives him the evidence key, he shakes his hand subtly at the end.
And that guy hates him up to that point.
Tons of those guys like hate him, but then, finally he's got them all on their side, but like, is he on the up and up? I don't know. That is a nice spin on the idea that he's this perfect, Like his fallibility in the show is mostly in his freak out moments, or when he goes and he hits people with toolboxes, or when he throws the interrogation out the window by just like freaking out on the King and Yellow guy and all that stuff. But I generally do not like media where the protagonist or protagonists are just like superhuman in some way. I prefer it to be very like accidental, and like they just got through off the skin of their teeth, or they're fumbling over this thing and they make it work, or they don't make it work and then they have to deal with that. That's way more interesting to me than know, ace lawyer walks in and solves the case, and a lot of people like Law and Order, very famous American television show, famous for the way that their episodes end, among other things, I'm sure. But it's always like a weird unanswered question or a cliffhanger, or like we the jury find the defendant, executive produced by Dick Wolf. It's like right. You never get the closure a lot of the times. And they frame it so that it like you didn't know either before the jury said anything. Like is like who knows if this dickhead gets right, or if this innocent guy gets out, whatever. But that's a more interesting narrative where sometimes those episodes end and they don't get the guy and he walks. That's real life. I don't know. Those things are more interesting. So
sure.
Marty's douchebag in summary. Nobody likes him.
His daughters are creepy.
Yeah, well, they're shot creepily in the show. Who knows what they're like when not possessed by the great beyond. Russ is he's too good of a person at almost everything, of which I don't like. But
relationships.
There's doubt
he sucks
in
at
him.
relationships.
Sure, but like that's the framing of like Monk,
Sure.
where he's the super genius detective, but he is a germaphobe and he,
Yeah.
you know, a claustrophobe and a phobe. He just has every phobia and
Yeah.
just has trouble interacting with people. And that show is not really about detective. It's about him getting better.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan of that as a premise.
Sure.
It's more prominent in less interesting formats, like I talked about. Not really liking the Expendables and superhero movies. Mm-hmm. That's not what those are about. I don't go into those going, I hope the superhero's fallible and has a weak point, you know, like
Yeah.
I know what I'm getting into, but
Sure.
I prefer something more human. Like that's why Greek mythology is so fascinating, right? Like all those gods just had dealt with and had emotions and human relationships for what we understood them to be. And now we have like these monotheistic things where they're fourth dimensional beings, or they're you know, they're omnipotent or uncaring or dead and long gone or whatever.
Yeah.
But these other ones like actively interacted with people and were just petty and rapists and like quote unquote human traits that occurred back then were manifested in those stories and stuff. And that's way more interesting. People love Greek mythology.
Yeah.
And the like.
Yeah.
More so than they like reading the dull-ass Bible or the Quran, which, you know, just like repeats itself over and over. And like the stories that are vaguely interesting are kind of weird, you know, and like you know, you read the story of how Zeus was like, you know, what was it, like he swallowed all his sons or some shit, like I don't know, there's some crazy shit.
One of his offspring was born out of his forehead.
Right, yeah. It's just weird stuff and like and it's mostly petty. So if you like drama, you like you like Greek mythology, but it's generally more human and more interesting in my opinion. Any hoozle.
All right, well, the black stars rise and time is a flat circle.
And don't stare into the tree trunk too long. Or do.
Until next time. Go watch episode 6, Haunted Houses. We're about to, so you should too.
I'm excited for the title.
Yeah.
Yes. I want more of houses that are haunted, please. Yes, go watch it. And we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye. Goodbye.
This episode was recorded on January 28th, 2019. Our next episode, True Detectives Episode 6, will air on Saturday, January 4th, 2020. Please keep your eyes and ears out for that.
Yeah, and places you can keep your eyes and ears are our social media platforms. We've got a Twitter and a YouTube. YouTube, where you can also find our Let's Play content, where we play video games of this sort of ilk. You can always find us on our website, where all of this will be aggregated, all this content all together, at thevoidstaresback.com, where you can also contact us directly. Those links will all be found in the description below.
Yeah, and if you like hearing us talk, or you're interested in the other things that we do as people, we have a Twitch channel under the name Cardboard on Tap, where we play board games live with a few other folks, and it's a variety. Not really stuck to any one theme like this is, but it's a good time.
Yeah. I'd love to see you there.
Okay, next. Leave that in.